Hello and welcome to today's SEJ webinar. We're very excited to have you here with us. I'm Heather Campbell, the VP of Marketing and Sales here at SEJ, and I'm just glad that you're here to spend your time with us. Today, I have the team from SEO Clarity with me. I have Tanya German, VP of Marketing, and Mark Traphagen, VP of Product Marketing and Training. Thank you for both being here for today's webinar. I know that this is not your first SEJ webinar, but why don't you introduce yourselves to our team, or your team to our readers?
Sure. Thanks, Heather. Thanks for having us today. And we're so happy to be here with all of you. We're just going to go in alphabetical order for the heck of it here. So I'll start. Mark Traphagen, VP of Product Marketing and Training for SEO Clarity. I've been in digital marketing and SEO for over 20 years, 5.5 years last year, happy years with SEO Clarity. And one of the things that I've always done at any agency or platform that I've worked for is to kind of keep my finger on the pulse of what's happening out in the SEO world and be an advisor in-house for our clients, for our own people, and out there in the general community on that. And so the AI area is something I've been following very closely, this generative AI, since it's been a thing. And avid interest, watching it every day, watching the news, testing the developments, tracking our own data. So I'm excited to share a lot of that with you, to all of you today. Tanya?
He is not joking. He tracks everything, informs our entire team, updates and articles and such. So he's a great resource, and we're so excited to have him here with us today. I'm Tanya German. I have been in the content marketing and creation world for over 2 decades. Maybe I say a joke of when content was queen, not king or something. And before it was really data driven, right? And so I have spent the last 8 years at SEO Clarity really focusing on how to make content data driven and really drive those results. And I'm so interested and excited for this next evolution in my career on AI search and how that's really going to apply there. So excited to share what we've learned even on SEOclarity.net on that today as well.
Awesome. Well, let's get to it. I'm going to do some quick housekeeping, but this team, you're really going to walk away with a proven framework to drive results. So let's get to it as fast as we can. If you need closed captioning, it's the CC and the top right of your screen. Give that a click. We will do Q&A at the end of the presentation. So add your questions to the Q&A tab. If you like a question that you see, give it a little thumbs up, and that'll kind of like push those to the top and tell us that those are important ones for you all. Before you leave today's call, we have a short survey for you. Let us know how today's webinar went. So if you can take about 30 seconds or so to take that afterwards, that would be great. And you will receive today's recording and slides in your inbox once it's done buffering. So watch for that. We have some great handouts to complement today's topic. So make sure you check the handouts tab. Use the chat. Let us know where you're coming in from today. I see, we've got some Ontario, Dallas, Brazil. Love to see it. So great. You guys are already doing it. It's like you've been here. You know the spiel. So, all right. With that, we're going to get to the content. Here we go. I'll be back at the Q&A.
Okay, Mark, let's get started with the information we have to share today.
Yeah, we've got a lot to share.
Yes, dive in.
All right, well, let's start with this. You're going to recognize these questions out there because these are the questions I've been hearing. I'm every day out there on LinkedIn, on the search forums, and talking to our clients at SEO Clarity, and we're hearing these kind of questions. You look at them for a moment, you probably recognize them. You probably have some of them yourself. The good news is there's answers to all of these, and we're going to be giving them to you through this webinar. And really, when we look at all this, it seems so different. It seems so new. But if we approach it with a proven framework, we're good to go. We have such a framework, don't we, Tanya?
Right. So basically what we did is taken all these questions that our clients were asking us, what we were researching, and put together a framework. And what's really important to understand here, it doesn't matter where you are on your SEO journey, your AI search journey. Don't be overwhelmed by all of this. Get started with one section, one piece and part. These aren't meant to be steps or go in this order. It's focused on where you are, what resources you have, and how you can get started. But we're going to tackle each one of these. What's most important is that we base this framework off of facts, off of the research, built our opinions from that, of course, and put together this framework from that. But we're going to share with you our original research, what that actually reveals and how to approach your strategy for AI search with that. So let's get started with the first question, which I think, Mark, is the most one that we hear, right? From clients, prospects, et cetera.
So yeah, the fundamental things what we want to know, we're marketers, right? We want to know, where's the opportunity? Where can I get in on this? How do I match up with it? But people are afraid. The AI engines seem like black boxes. We think there's so much we don't know or don't have. There's no search console for these things. So how do we find out where the opportunities are? Well, the good news is, if you understand a little bit about how they work, you begin to see how you can intersect with these engines at the point where they need your content from the site and they're going to make use of you. It starts with the fact that people enter much more complex queries into these engines. They're comfortable doing that because they see, oh, I can do this. And unlike Google, they'll be able to answer this. They'll be able to bring together all this information. But here's how they do it. So it's something called vector embedding. They can break up all of this very complex query into all of its individual parts, its facets, if you will. And so it pulls out like the entities in here, the things like the Bluetooth headphones and battery life are entities, and then concepts and even intents that are in there, and breaks those up. And then through something called query fan out, it acts like a team of researchers out there who are, let's say, imagine you had this team of researchers and you said, like, I want to know all these things about Bluetooth headphones. And they said, we got it, Chief, we're on it. And they're each typing into their own version of Google all these little sub searches, right? That's what the engine's doing all at once. Now, the magic is, this is where you intersect. You don't have to answer that whole big question on here, but this is where your content can intersect with the AI engine and be pulled in and be used. So these subqueries are more like the kind of things that we're used to optimizing for in traditional search. And so if you match up with these, and the more of these that you answer in your content, the more opportunities you're going to have to show up and be visible in the search.
Awesome. That's a really good description, Mark. And it helps us really see, like, okay, now I understand how these are being broken out and how they're answering them. Mark, thanks so much for taking us through that. Let's move back to the facts, right? The facts of what we know about what are people actually searching. Well, the fact of the matter is, there isn't a keyword planner for AI search. We need to be rooted in that fact. AI search engines aren't sharing that. There isn't a keyword planner for them. There is no search console. There is no logs of what users are actually asking us. But this is no different than where we've been before. Everything is going to be fine. And remember, just because AI search was invented doesn't mean demand is different, right? Users didn't wake up and just say, because now there's ChatGPT, I'm going to go buy a new car today, right? That isn't happening. If they had the intent or the need to buy a car, they had that before AI search was invented as well. So demand shouldn't be different. But here's what I think is really cool. SEOs have never had the perfect information, right? Remember when Google took away term not provided, right? We've always been living in the unknown. We've always been great at reading between the lines, using the publicly available data, and then piecing together these signals and turning that ambiguity into strategy. It's actually funny. We make a joke a lot about SEO clarity, about the superpower of SEOs is really ultimately living in the unknown and helping each other. So that's what I think. We're going to be okay. Users didn't change their demand just because this is new. But Mark, we can be rooted in the fact that this is still getting started, right?
Yeah, I mean, you might feel a little panicked at this point, looking at everything that's out there saying, like, yes, it's AI search seems ambiguous and the prompts are invisible to us. And there's so much, we have to learn about this. But the good news is, yes, we are in the early days of it. We did some deep digging research here at SEO Clarity, and we figured out that ChatGPT, which is by far the most used right now of those engines, is only about 2.5% of all the searches that are done. Now, Google's still up around 88, 90%, depending on whose figures you look at. So the gap there is huge. It's small. It's Bing is 3 times bigger than this. That means that we're in the early days, but it is growing. It is increasing. That figure will go up month over month. So we're in the early days of it. You're getting in now, and we're glad you're here at this webinar because we're giving you the head up on things that would put you above the competition going forward. You know that also it varies by industry. I think this is another fact that's important to know. And you need to dig down a little. We've done some deep digging on that. And research we're putting out, as you can see here, there's certain industries that get more of that AI traffic than others. So information-rich sites, not surprisingly, seem to be accelerating in the adoption. Things like education, health, B2B sites. This is where we're seeing a lot of that happen.
Yeah, Mark, we've even seen at SEO Clarity close to about 5% of our overall organic traffic is actually coming from the AI search engines. And then what we've kind of heard just a little bit anecdotally, but like e-commerce sites or more transactional sites are really only, 0.5, 1% of their overall traffic of organic traffic is coming from AI search. So definitely these information heavy kind of industries are seeing that adoption early. But Mark, you said something really important, that this is accelerating fast, right? With AI mode launching to all US users about a month ago, everyone has Google in their hand. Google is using clues throughout the regular or traditional search experience to push people to AI mode. And let's not to mention, AI overviews showing for a significant amount of queries, mostly informational queries so far, but informational queries already within the SERP. So we know this is going to accelerate. So what do we really do about this? How do we get going? First of all, we can apply a statistical model for search demand using what we know about how people are using these AI search engines. Another really good tactic, we've done this at SEO Clarity, is really leveraging the data that of the traffic and conversions that are happening on our site from these AI search engines, looking at that referral traffic, seeing where are we being used. Even if it is a little bit, it's still a guiding indicator to show us where we're successful right now. And then what other places do we want to be successful in AI search? And that's looking at some of our key strategic products or our services, right? What are we investing media dollars in that we should be focused on those topics and for AI search as well? And then what Mark really started this whole thing from is thinking about topics, not keywords, not worrying about the specifics, but focusing on having that authority around the topic. And so, Mark, what did we do at SEO Clarity to kind of solve this for our clients?
Yeah, we're going to be showing you a lot of those solutions throughout the rest of the webinar, but one in particular that people have asked about and that we're the first to have is to be able to, first of all, pull out the questions that people are most likely asking, right? And we can do that from the oceans of clickstream data that we have. We analyze that. We can organize it around topics, show you the questions that you should be both optimizing for and tracking in these AI engines, but also helping you prioritize those with the very first industry use of that data to estimate demand on these LLMs, on these AI search engines. You're used to using that for keyword research in regular SEO. Now you have it here within Clarity Arc AI. You know the questions you should be answering and which ones and which priority to be tracking and looking at first.
Yeah, it's so insightful for sure. Okay, what's another question we come across? And this one has been being asked all over larger organizations, that are investing a ton of money into content. And the fact of the matter is the CMOs and other marketing leaders are asking if this strategy still matters. So we've been working with Brain Labs and Travis Talent to really answer this question. More research will be out on this soon, but the early read in our research, based on the work that Brain Labs does with their Fortune 500 clients and really being that performance-driven agency, making sure they're focused on, getting results with their clients. They've really dove into this question, and there'll be some more original research out soon. But we want to arm you, the SEO practitioner, the PR practitioner, answer this question with confidence and have the data and metrics to back up how important this content strategy is in the AI search era. What's important too is just that we get or keep in our resource allocation and budget because this is so important. The team at Brain Labs went deep into this and found that really more original content with multimedia, infographics, videos, as well as like third-party mentions, drives more visibility in AI search. So creating and working with a team that even creates content for TikTok or YouTube or even managing Reddit closer can help. Those are all sources that AI search engines are using to help understand the authority in this, the authority of a company or product service. The next part that we're seeing in this is brand safety and how important it is to control the conversation with content. We need to own that rather than rely on third parties, because it's not just about who gets the credit, it's about who gets the influence. AI search is the new front door. Your content doesn't have to get the click to shape the conversation, but just like brand marketers focus on impressions or mentions, sentiment, SEOs now need to focus on how to measure that influence, not just the traffic. So now that we've answered that question, I was going to also mention that we are going to have more research focused on that. And I know more and more is coming out throughout the industry about that question as well. Okay, now that we know we need to create content, how do we optimize the content to really address, those AI responses?
Right. So again, with the complexity of the queries that we see out there, the way that people ask these more complex, longer form queries in these AI engines, it can seem overwhelming. It can seem like, how can I possibly have something about all of that? But if you break it down, remember that what I showed you earlier about how these engines work, the query fanning, that they take that complex question and break it down into the very simple fundamental questions that people are already asking Google that you already should be answering in your content. That's where we meet up with it. That's where we intersect. So you don't have to own Bluetooth headphones, everything about it. You have to have every angle of it that matters to the people that you want to reach. And that's where the magic of where we can take you in Clarity Arc AI down to the level of the questions that people are asking. We can monitor how you're showing up for those. We can show you where your gaps are, and you begin to fill in those answers. So again, the bottom line here is you don't win an AI search by owning the whole topic. You win by showing up for every angle of it that matters to your audience. So on your page side, let's talk about that. What does it you actually do on your pages? You may have heard this term chunking. This is where the AI engines now go down and they can parse at the passage level of your page. They're not looking so much at what the whole page is about, but they're pulling out each individual little part of it and saying, oh, this answers this answers that. And they know they can use that in the answer for somebody. So you have to think about it in that way. And you have to, as you optimize your pages, as you write new pages, you need to make sure that the writing is very, very clearly structured. They don't read, they read, and really this is good for humans too, because we know from studies, this is the way that people look at longer form content. They scan, they look for the exact things that they want to know. So I always say, for the AI engines, explain it like they're a 5-year-old. Make sure you have clear headings, clear answers to individual things, and use those gaps that you find out from the questions and the monitoring that we can show you how to do to understand where we need to answer more of these questions in our content to increase the chances that we're going to show up and be mentioned when in AI search about those topics.
And you don't just have to trust Mark on all of this. There's so much documentation that is out there about how AI search engines work. And all of the things Mark talked about is documented for that. We'll follow up with this. We don't need to go through this in particular, but in case you need to convince your stakeholders or do more education internally, we pulled these together for us.
Mm-hmm. So let's and sum up this part of it with just some concrete actions that you can take, just kind of reviewing what we said here. So let me say that modular, purposeful content. By purposeful, there we mean like every part, not just the whole page, but every part of every page needs to be about a particular thing, answering a particular question. I'm not saying it doesn't all need to be in question answer format. That's not what we're saying. But it needs to be clear headlines. Don't use callbacks or references to earlier sections because the AI doesn't understand that. But I always kind of like to pull the example of like, you could screenshot any part of that page, send it to some other person, and they would be able to read it and say like, oh, this is about that. This answers that question. So each person has purpose, is guided toward a specific intent of the user, And just like think about your users, because users do this. We know it from studies that watch people's eyes when they look at a page and their scrolling habits, right? They go down the page and they see something that interests them, they stop and they read there. If they do that, would they understand what that's about? If they understand it, then the machine's going to understand it. And you begin to connect with those subqueries, more and more of those subqueries, which is where the AI engines are actually looking for your content.
Mark, this is starting to sound a little bit like we're creating for the engines, but I know you kind of addressed this. Like, we don't want to go back to 2005 where we're writing for an engine, or we're stuffing keywords in there and being unreadable. We were actually surprised. SEO Clarity looked at our content. We were surprised how much we did that callback, and that the headings didn't kind of just address that topic and focus on each part of it, even though we knew that's how readers were using the content, right? They were scanning it. They were looking for the meaning in those different chunks and what they actually needed the answer to, not reading the entire article. So just your job is to write for readers. Just make sure to structure and format, so the AI search engines can easily pick up those passages and use them in the content. But I do think this is like a funny example of how we did just used to create for Google and stuff those keywords. It's kind of a good relation if you need some help just making that connection internally. So hopefully that helps.
Okay, so at SEO Clarity, one of the things that's been very important to us in helping our clients to succeed as much as we do is not just providing the data, a lot of people can do that, and not just moving to the insights, which are also important, which we're giving you here today in this webinar, and our platform does as well, but moving people from data to insights to action. If you're not able to do the actions that are going to cause the optimizations that increase your visibility in AI search, all the research in the world, all the data insights is meaningless. And we bring that all together within Clarity Arc AI with a content engine where your writers, your optimizers can actually come in and bring together all that data and information that we have that's going to tell them what they should be talking about, how they should talk about it, how they should write it, how they should structure it. All that is there right in there. So not only can you get the insights that you need, but you can take the actions that you need that are going to increase your visibility over time in these AI engines. Okay, great. We give you the data, we give you the insights, we even help you create the content in the right kind of way. But how do we know if they're discovering that content? If they're not discovering it, it goes nowhere. So Tanya, tell us how we do that. How do we know if they're even seeing what this wonderful stuff we've created now?
This is a really important thing to get to get the fact and the research right. AI search engines are accessing our content. They are crawling our sites. And we try to see how frequently, how much are they actually doing on their own? And what we discovered, this was from June 2025, that they're crawling about 60% of the unique pages that Google is. But it's not the same across the board. The smaller sites right now, they're only crawling about 5% of their pages, which is crazy. But we know these AI search engines have money from investors. They are positioned to win. And we know that this has been a very aggressive push for them to build their indexes, right? They need to understand the content on the web so they can give the best answers in that more real-time kind of experience that they're delivering on. It's important for us to focus on that because, technical is also a part of AI search engines. So, Mark, what do we really do about this?
So this kind of brings back those days when, not all that long ago, like a year ago, everybody was just thinking, in the publishing world, everybody's thinking in the content world, look, AI just steals our content. So, we should we don't like them doing that. We don't get credit for it. We've already dispelled all those myths in this webinar. So we're just going to block it. And in fact, when we began to talk to our clients early this year and talk to them about Arc AI and all the things it could do like that, when we got to this part of talking about this, we saw sometimes they got a little worried look on their face. And they scurried away and went to look and said, oh, yeah, we blocked all those a year ago. They're still blocked. Maybe you should think about unblocking them now. So that's a fundamental, right? Making sure that the AI bots can crawl your sites. They get to the content because now we know that game. We want to be in that game. We want to be getting that influence, right? So make it accessible on the server side. All this is so much like the technical SEO that we've always done. It's not anything all that new, and that's kind of comforting. One little fact that's important to know is that what we're seeing so far is that these AI search engines, these large language models, are not accessing JavaScript. So you want to think about that. If you have anything that's really important that you want them to see, that you want to be known for behind JavaScript, you might want to change that for now at least. But overall, what you want to know is the same thing you want to know for Google bots. Where is it accessing your site? Where is it spending time? And where is it not? And of course, in Clarity Arc AI, because it is the one and only AI end-to-end solution for AI search, we show all that to you. So you can actually, we do the heavy lifting for you. We call this out. We know how to parse it out. We see where the AI bots are crawling your site, where they're not. Right down to the page level, you can find out, what content's not being crawled. And then you go just do that technical SEO, just like you do for Google, and go in and look like, what do we have? Have we blocked these bots? Is there some other technical issue? All the typical things that might be causing them not to crawl those parts of your site, because you want them now to have that access, and we show it to you. Okay. So the next thing after all this, okay, we talked about understanding how the engines work, understanding how we connect to them in ways that they're going to use, how we the kind of content that we need to create, all of that. Now, of course, we want to be able to measure that. And that's very important. Like, how do we know that all that succeeded? How do we know we're doing better in that, or we're getting, where our weaknesses are? Tanya, how do we do that?
Right. It's a really important thing that we have to think about is that SEOs, for years, we've been just the performance marketers. If we couldn't track it, it didn't count. Even I always use the example of even the branded versus the unbranded, right? SEOs kind of got like, oh, well, you didn't do the work for the brand queries. The brand team did. The TV advertising drove the user to, search for that brand, product, whatever. So we've been focused on that. We've been focused on how do we prove the clicks, the click-through rate, the conversions that are actually coming from organic search. We even built dashboards around them, right? And optimized pages based on those metrics to report our wins. And the thing is, though, Mark, right, is there's a lot of influence coming before they even drive to your site.
Yes. And this is so important because we've been, as SEOs, and rightly so up till now, we've kind of worshiped the click, right? It's like everything's about getting the click, and that's all we care about. Not all we care about, but it's a very fundamental metric. We got to kind of start giving that up a little bit and thinking more broadly, thinking like real marketers. Because what happens with AI search, because people do these more complex searches, because it's conversational, they can interact, they can do deeper research with these, and they do. It's the funnel we used to think of as more now like a crazy straw. Do you remember those old straws they used to have you get with a Slurpee or something like that? And it was kind of like started out straight and then it kind of twisted all around like that, and then it went back into the drink. That's kind of like what the funnel looks like now. People are bouncing all around with different questions. So a fundamental fact that we discovered is that on the average, there's probably 20 searches that are happening before anybody clicks on anything in AI search. The secret is not just getting that last click, but for you being it's showing up in the citations and in the mentions, that you're getting that influence, that you're influencing those clicks those searchers before they get to the point where, okay, now I need to know more. I'm going to click through. They've seen your brand. They've seen you having the right answers. And so that becomes the awareness, visibility that's going to lead to them when they get to those citations on the right-hand side there, they're going to click on yours.
Yeah. It's about taking that performance marketers that we are, Mark, right? And just focusing on results. So how can we do that? We can do that with these metrics that Mark mentioned. Brand marketing is about presence, but this is also about the balance of the art and science of marketing. Mm-hmm. Now is the time in SEO that we need to blend both of these. We need to focus on these other metrics that are about these mentions and citations. Are we being mentioned? Is our brand actually showing up in these AI generated answers? And if our content's being used, even if it's not being clicked. We're kind of starting to call this a little bit of like, how do you think of this as that share of voice for AI search, which I think is going to be so incredible for SEOs if we can get these metrics and focus in on them and use them to drive the insights. We're going to get a larger seat at the table. I really, truly believe that content and, SEO isn't dead, isn't going away. It's just expanding, and that's a good thing.
And again, in Clarity Arc AI, we show you that. You can actually see to that level. You can see where you're having that influence that you need to be having before the click. How do we do it? We take the topics that are important to you. We automatically give to you and help you work with the questions that you should be asking, those sub-queries that we talked about, where you meet up with the AI engine, and we show your visibility across all the major engines. We're covering those, including the new Google AI mode, to be able to show you your visibility. And that shows you how much influence you're having out there. And because we parse this at the question level, you can go down, dig deeper in these reports, and see for you and for all your competitors where you're showing up and where you're not. And that gives you your gaps. Now you know, okay, we need to have more in our content about these things, so the AI engines begin to see us as part of the answer for that, building that influence in the crazy part of the crazy straw, so that when people come out the end, it's going to be you that they click to and go to when they're ready to purchase, they're ready to buy, they're ready to be your customer.
So now we have to measure this all together to really understand, or pull this all together rather, how my brand is performing across AI search engines. We need to pull together these different metrics from citations, mentions, again, with the traffic. But there is a good fact here, Mark. Everyone is really panicked about this, right? There's only a small sliver that is coming from AI search engines at this point. Traffic can't be the only metric, which we mentioned, but we know that this is growing really fast across all of the clients, or all of the clients that we track. We looked at the percentage of their organic traffic that they're getting, and it's really only 0.5% so far that's coming from AI search engines. So what do we really do about this? We have to pull, like I mentioned to start, we have to pull this all together.
So the good news here is that AI search isn't fully untrackable. That's what everybody feared, right? No way to track this, no way to know what our success is. No, you can do things like when it does cite you, it links to you. A citation is a link, and you can track that traffic. We can help you do that. We can pull that right out. That's growing, as Tanya said, and it gives you insights into where you're succeeding, where the topics and the parts of your site that users are most engaging with, like where are they going, and you want to make sure you beef those up. You want to make sure that you're sending them to the right pages for that, just like regular SEO again. In fact, we noticed something, right, Tanya, about our own site. Tell me about that.
Yeah, we were really analyzing the traffic that is coming from AI search and trying to learn, like, what do these pages have that the other pages don't, right? And we really noticed that one of our topics, or really two topics, but we had a lot of pages driving traffic from our schema topic and internal links. And we have, amazingly, we have covered those topics with that complete right authority, covering all angles on it. But we knew that this is an opportunity to focus on. How do we prioritize here? Now, what else are we missing in this topic? And how can we get more? The other thing we really noticed is the conversions. What pages are actually driving the conversions? For us, that's getting a lead, getting a sales qualified lead, someone asking to see, the product. And revenue is ultimately the goal. So we focus on what are those pages that are driving conversions? How do we do more of that? This is the foundation. That becomes the hard evidence you can use internally.
Right.
But there's more. Now we can analyze the response itself. AI doesn't just drive traffic, it speaks for your brand. So we need to assess the quality of that conversation. I know there's a lot of, people talking about hallucinations and not having factually correct information, but we actually think this is just managing the content, the facts on your site, and of course, external sites as well. We had this example that came through from a client, as a financial brand, where one of their locations was reporting in a response in ChatGPT that it was closed. And automatically, we thought it was a hallucination. The team thought it was a hallucination. But actually, we looked at the facts of the matter, and there was an old article, 20 plus years old, still published on the internet about that location closing. And so we need to identify where those things are not fact and how AI search is responding, and then take control of that content, right? There's things that the team could then do about that piece of content. Even if they couldn't get it taken down, they can actually write things or optimize their local pages, et cetera, if they have that information. But the facts here of the matter are, Mark.
So when we look at something like, let's pull out sentiment analysis, which is something that we are doing in ARC AI. Our research shows that 98% of the time it's positive or neutral in AI engines when they give a response. And that must be because we're just all wonderful. All brands are perfect and wonderful and everybody loves them. And we know that's not the case. So what's going on here? A little bit of understanding helps us again about how these AI engines work. They are programmed to be this way. They are programmed to try wherever possible to give a positive or at least a neutral response. And if you think about it for a moment, you can understand why that is. It's because it's so easy, unfortunately, out there, we know in the marketing world, to create negativity, even false negativity around a brand, around a product, and just, pull all that in. And they find on the whole that people get more benefit out of the positive or at least neutral response on that. So they're programmed that way, so it's not surprising we found that. But that doesn't mean that, as Tanya already gave us an example of, that the responses are, because they might be more positive, that they're always accurate. So we need to go to a deeper level, right, Tanya?
Also, Mark, if you force the AI search engine to be negative, it will, but that's you feeding it to then respond that way. So we don't want to say like there's these perfect guardrails, but there are guardrails. In fact, making sure that doesn't happen unless you force it. But yeah, let's give a few examples from SEO Clarity. We have a forecasting tool as part of our suite of within the platform, and we knew that this wasn't really a negative response, but we didn't talk about forecasting and using this example of simulation. So it didn't know. It's like, well, they don't explicitly mention this, but it did know that we had an SEO forecasting tool. We just didn't realize that we didn't talk about it in that context. So just again, another little spoke of content we can create about simulating SEO campaigns to get results or to use our forecasting tool in that way. The next example is another really good one. It's about our training programs and how we onboard clients. And I knew right away when I saw this, it had been a long time since we had touched these pages. So it didn't know the details and it probably hadn't accessed that content. But it wasn't negative. It just wasn't sure. But that gives us something to work on, right? We can actually take an action here. And it raises really good questions, again, that SEOs are really, really good at investigating the why did this happen versus, what happened, right? Are AI bots actually accessing my content? Is there coverage of this topic? Is it comprehensive? Is it structured in a way that is retrievable by the engines? And are we using the right language, or is it buried in our branding, right? For instance, that could have been that. So it's that investigative mindset that SEOs are really good at. We don't just fix things, we figure out why and then can apply it to our strategy. So Mark, let's pull this all together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's, we've talked about some new metrics here, some new ways of looking at things that we're not maybe used to from our traditional SEO. But again, as we've been emphasizing throughout, it's the same instincts. It's the same things we're looking for because people are looking for the same things. So we can know things. We've done a lot here to dispel that myth that it's all a black box. You can't know anything. You can, first of all, see the outcomes in traffic and clicks. Even though it's smaller than we might get from organic search, people do click through. We can see the visibility that we have and the mentions and the citations. We're influencing that crazy straw again early on to get those. And finally, we can look at how are we being represented on these AI engines and how accurate is that, so we can take steps to correct that where it's not being represented the way that we want to. And of course, in Clarity Arc AI, we bring all that together for you. We show you all of that. You can see the traffic, where it's coming and what pages it's coming to. You can analyze down to the level of conversions and other goals that you might have. You can see your overall sentiment and click through even to see the actual results and see, how we're being represented in these AI engines. And then we can even check the accuracy of those results, because we know sometimes the AI engines hallucinate. They make things up, or they pull from sources that are inaccurate. We can track that down. We can get down to the level of where those sources are coming from and get those things corrected, get a better picture out there. So, by the way, think about the wonder of this. You're getting information here from these AI engines. We talk about like lack of information. You're getting information that previous generations of marketers would have died to have. This kind of research that we show you in Arc AI informs all of your marketing. It informs your regular SEO. As you improve these things that lead to better visibility in the AI engines, to better appearance of your brand, you're doing all the things that raise the level of your marketing all around. It's just win-win all over the place.
There's just a real opportunity here, right, Mark? So let's wrap this up.
Yeah.
which I think is the first thing. Don't wait. Keep going. We need to learn. We need to teach each other. AI search is influencing buyer behavior today, but as we described today, it's a small piece, but growing. We have an opportunity. Every time something's new, we have an opportunity to capture, right? To build trust, to be a part of those answers.
We also saw that you need to kind of shift your thinking about your content a little bit, focusing in more on the individual passages on your pages, not just the page as a whole, getting that structure in there, making sure that each passage is kind of self-contained and answers and clearly about something that helps the AI engines understand it better and helps your users once they get to the page to find what they're looking for.
Yeah, and we need to move past just the clicks, just the traffic we've been used to reporting, and involve and add those new metrics. Like Mark said, it's a great time to be a content marketer and SEO marketer because there is so many clues to help us do better, to improve outside of just that traffic.
And those metrics help us to identify the gaps that we have. That's something in SEO and content marketing we always want to be doing, right? We want to know, where are we missing the mark? Where are we not supplying something that's going to make us show up, whether it's in Google and these AI engines? So we can see what pages are showing up and what are not, what are bringing traffic and which ones are not. And then we know where we need to improve. We know the information we need to shore up, make better, include on our pages so that we increase that visibility.
Yeah. And the bottom line is, if they can't access it, they can't cite you or use it. So make sure you're looking to see how the AI bots are actually accessing your content. The content has to be found. That's the bottom line. So SEO Clarity has Clarity Arc AI. It is the only end-to-end solution that Mark has said multiple times throughout this webinar that can take you from data insights, right, to really into the actions and execution throughout the framework we put together based on the questions that clients are asking. And it isn't just repackaged SEO. It's purpose-built for how engines discover, how they cite, how they use content, how they need it structured, how they want it structured, maybe. But you want to be part of AI search so you can join the conversation and be a part of that influence before they arrive to your site. I can't stress that enough. All right, let's go over to questions.
Here we go. That was great stuff. And this is a great chat. There's great engagement and some back and forth. I love to see it. Just so you know, a storm just dropped on me. So if I drop off, Mark and Tanya, the Q&A is all yours. Okay. But here's hoping that doesn't happen. All right. So let's start. We had a couple questions come in before the webinar, so I dropped them in here. So first, I know most people use AI search for informational intent, but what specific intent types do you see the most growth happening for?
Well, I can speak to that right away. Definitely e-commerce, transactional. First of all, seeing that in Google itself in AI overviews, we've seen in recent months, that's been a big shift. That it was static for a long time, and now we're seeing a growing amount of transactional intent showing up in with AI overviews. We know that the other engines are moving toward that. They want to be part of that e-commerce game. They know that that's where so much of the money is. So we see things like Perplexity and ChatGPT. Perplexity's had a e-commerce engine for a long time. ChatGPT is kind of betaing it at the present. So that's the area to keep your eye on. Still small, but definitely an area to keep our eye on.
Excellent. So I'm going to throw this one up there as well. Well, where did it go? Sorry, they move so quickly and I try to tag them, but sometimes they get away from me. Okay, here we go. AI search seems to be taking over our mind share, our headlines, our newsreels, but traditional Google is still the lion's share of the opportunity. How do you suggest we balance it? What should they really be focusing on in today's search?
I think Mark did a really good job in the webinar kind of referring to this, but it is all the headlines. It's everything that the industry is talking about. It's no joke, but Google is. Traditional SEO is still driving the majority of the traffic, but this is coming. We're seeing the growth every day. There was some questions about, is Google AI still evolving? Is the entire industry is still evolving, and it's moving fast. But we do need to focus on this because we don't want to be left behind, and we want to learn. This is the time to learn, test, try, and learn. And the other thing that is so great is everything that you'd be doing for AI search, this guidance, at least what we gave today in the webinar, 100% does not ruin traditional SEO. It actually helps. The topic authority, answering questions on all angles, focused on your target audience, 100%. Can I just also say this is like SEO had kind of broken the internet by just repeating the same things over and over and over again on different websites just to get the traffic. And I see a lot of questions about getting the traffic or getting the click. You can still get the traffic and the click for when it actually matters, right? Revenue. I know some traffic does matter still, but we needed something to actually be able to write unique content and unique points of view for personas. And now we have it. I think it's an amazing place to be.
I'm going to second that.
Yes.
So Daniel Ireland asks, are there recommendations for clients with informational or service-based websites where AI may answer questions directly based on their content, potentially reducing the need for users to visit the actual site? I've seen several questions worded this way, so I think this covers what a few people are thinking.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the big worry, right? That was the big zero-click scare about AI. Not so much a scare. I mean, we know that's happening. We know that the zero-click phenomenon has increased. We know across the board that overall traffic is down across many types of sites, and a lot of that's being attributed to AI. What this means, though, is that this is not something we weren't prepared for or shouldn't have been prepared for. It's been for a long time. The commoditization of information, that commodity level information has become less and less valuable. We saw it first way back in the world with Google. Like, it used to be, how many sites were there? If you put in like, what time is it? And you would get Google results would be all these websites that were just dedicated to telling you what time it was. Nobody does that anymore because that's so easy to answer, and Google answers that for you. And that took another step with featured snippets and things like that. So this has been moving for a long time. We have to think now further down the funnel, if you will, information that's going to be truly unique and valuable at the point where people are really making decisions that are going to affect your business. And that's where you want to show up. I think there's always been less and less value in showing up for what time is it kind of questions or fundamental things about your industry that everybody answers. It's on every single site, the same thing, right? That's not what's going to attract people to your brand ultimately. So remember that stat that I showed you in the webinar, that we're seeing that in AI search, we're estimating that people do about 20 searches before ever making a click. What you're getting, or what you should be getting, theoretically, down the line is a more qualified customer, somebody who's already done a lot of the research. Maybe it doesn't matter if they got the answer from you or for not. Like if they know more about this type of insurance, if that's what you're selling, when they finally do ask a more in-depth kind of question that leads them to where you have that unique answer and get the site, they're going to come to you as more informed, further down the road, ready to purchase. So rather than seeing this as kind of a devastating thing, I think it's good for, it can be seen as a good thing. We just have to shift our mindset of content to more valuable, more unique content.
I'll just offer it from the SEOclarity.net perspective. And just, we have written so much informational content or service-based content about what we offer. And oftentimes I would get frustrated in that content creation because we didn't cover maybe some of the basics because our audience or how we focus was a little bit more enterprise or advanced audience of what we were doing. And now we are seeing the fruits of that result because we were so detail oriented directly to our audience, and we are seeing that higher visibility. So focus on your target audience, create the content to them about the unique things that you do, and your product will get shown.
Let's see. Some of these are really long questions. Joe asked, do you have any insight into when AI mode will become an experience for Google search?
Well, we only know what Google tells us, of course, but I will say this. That is the one we are telling our clients to keep their eye on, because Google has been very gung-ho about it. And they have said, while they're not giving any timelines, they have been explicit and said, like, this is coming. This is going to go mainstream. This is not going to remain where it is in a tab off to the side. This is the future, and it's what's coming. So when that goes mainstream, when it does, and I think it's going to be months at the most, then we're going to see a huge shift, I think, when people can start to use this. If I were running OpenAI or some of these other third-party sources, I would be shaking my boots a little bit, because Google has the real estate, right, in our lives. Still true that about 90% of the people worldwide use Google every day. And so if it's right there, if the full experience that you want from an AI engine is right there in the thing that you already use, why would you go somewhere else? Why would you pay for it somewhere else? So while we don't know exactly when it's coming, it's the one you want to be watching. You want to be experimenting and testing with it. We have already incorporated into Arc AI. We're already tracking it, ready to do that. So it's definitely the one we have our eye on. Yeah.
Can I just jump in? I know there's been some questions about our 1 in 20. We did a statistical model, and I see the 1 in or 1,500 to 1 click. We did an analysis to try to remove all the things that were happening in AI search that weren't actually about products and services.
Yep.
So all the things you do in ChatGPT to write you an email, or whatever, the hundreds of things you're asking it to do that isn't actually getting to a product or service, that's what we were removing from that data point and saying 1 in every 20 searches that might be informational intent getting you to a product or service was that 1 in 20 clicks. So I see that happening in that chat, and I just wanted to clarify that it was like in the fine print on that slide.
That's such a great point, Kanye, because that's something we have to keep in mind, is that people do a lot more in these AI engines than ask search questions. What we're going to be focused on, interested in, of course, is the true search market that leads people to us.
The product and services. Yeah.
So while we're talking about content that you already referenced, Jessica's asking, what did you mean by third-party mentions, in referencing the slide that talks about the more authoritative original content?
Yeah, simple definition there. We just mean any site other than yours, third party. So, ultimately, you, of course, want people to come to your site. You want to be the answer for that. But when people ask a question like, what is the best lawn care service in Durham, North Carolina? That's not, if I'm running a lawn care service, the AI is not going to look at my site. It's not, the AI isn't in the business of making recommendations itself. It's going to go look out where those recommendations are. And those are going to be on other sites that write list articles about, here's the top 10 lawn services in Durham, North Carolina. So that's what we mean by a third-party site, any site other than your own. And one of the great things that we're seeing, an insight that we didn't really have as much before, not easily, that we're getting through these AI engines and through Arc AI, because we're monitoring this, is seeing those citations, is seeing like who's talking about us out there, who's mentioning and who's not mentioning us. And those are opportunities to go and say, if there's recommendation sites or a list out there that's not mentioning your business, which should be, you should probably be reaching out to them and saying, hey, we do that too. Here's a whole page on that, and try to get included on those mentions.
I just try to keep in mind that I can't fathom how much content the LLMs are reading or how much knowledge it has. It's synthesizing so much content in its response, and the more often you come up, the more easy, or the way you'll be in the synthesized answer to that unique question or prompt.
Yeah.
So we talked about metrics, but Blake's question is, when we talk about winning in AI search, what are the metrics that we are actually talking about? Is it citation generation, AIO, quotes, referrals? Since so many queries are zero click, what does winning actually mean? And I know this is it depends, and it depends on what you're tracking, but any advice here for what you all are tracking, what metrics you're looking at?
Tanya, you're trying to do that every day, so why don't you start the answer on that?
Yeah. So we kind of started with the citation and mentions as that primary, understanding your visibility percent against those topics that are really important to you. Someone asked about, what does that mean? 1 to 2 key topics. Well, the priority topics that you care about. Our business is about an SEO platform or an AI search platform. We care about that topic first and foremost. So what is our percent visibility in that topic? And then working from there. This is the question I keep asking, like, what actions are we taking from that visibility, from those metrics? It's understanding the content gaps then, right? Of what we're missing and what we're not actually showing up in the AI search results. The third party mentions, I think the referrals, referrals or people talking about us is really important. I think the referrals traffic I mentioned in the webinar as well. What pages are actually getting the traffic from AI search and or conversions? What can we learn from that success first and foremost? And then how do we learn from that expand? There's so much insights in there. Also, we've found so many examples from just accuracy or sentiment responses on it just not knowing. And is that because we haven't published content about that? I use the example, this is like e-commerce related, but if I have very tall people in my family and I'm always looking for a pant inseam. If you're buying women's clothes and you've ever looked to see a pant inseam on a product page, it hardly exists on a product page. So being detailed of those informations, of those types of content around our products and services are going to be able to surface the right products and services that we're asking AI search to, because now it's looking for that detailed content, right? Google traditional couldn't deliver those results if you gave it 5 things. You had to do that in 5 separate searches, right? And
I just want to address also they mentioned zero click in there, since so many queries are zero click. That, again, if you understand this overall concept, I think you don't need to worry as much about zero click. This is why mentions are important, right? If you're getting mentioned early on, remember those people, whether you want to buy our figure of 20 searches or somebody else's figure of 1,500 searches, people are doing a lot more and interact, because the AI searches are so interactive. You can ask more in-depth questions, you can go deeper, you can keep asking more, you can take it different directions. They're doing all that research in advance. You want to be showing up there. You want to be seen, even if they're not clicking through yet, because that's top of mind, right? You want to be one of the brands they're thinking of when they get there to that point where they say, okay, I'm ready to either research this more deeply or I'm ready to buy something. So yeah, don't worry as much about zero click in this regard. Worry more about, are you showing up? Are you being mentioned?
Yeah. Mark, you mentioned it earlier about, oh shoot, I'm sorry. I just lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. So many things are happening.
I'll come back to you.
I'm sorry. Moving on.
It's okay. I'll jump in here, and we've actually only got a minute, but I do want to throw this one up. We had some people curious, where are you getting the data from Arc AI?
Well, I mean, what data you're talking about, I guess, there's a lot of places. One of the most interesting things I think is, how do we establish, because we really go in depth, more in depth than any other platform I've seen so far, of helping our clients with developing the topics and questions that they should be tracking, because that's one of their biggest questions. Like, how do we know what questions we should be tracking and using as prompts to see our performance and how we're being mentioned and cited in these engines? And we draw on, what I can say is we draw on many, many clickstream sources, billions of questions that we take in, what we ingest and can analyze and relate them to topics, so that we have that expertise on those. Remember that thing I showed you in the webinar, where we really connect with the AI engines is the level of those subqueries. They break down the big complex questions that people are asking into little bits and ask individual questions. And those are the questions that we know what the volume for those is, how they relate to topics, and we can advise in that. So that's one source. Otherwise, we have 15, 18 years of experience of building incredible databases of what's happening in search overall. We, all that access, all of that is brought together into this. We have been, especially in the areas of like relating entities, topical entities together, things like that. We've been doing that for years and building those engines for that for years, because that's the way Google itself has been moving. So some things are going to be proprietary, we can't mention, but overall, I think one of the great advantages of Clarity Arc AI is that we have all that data resource and know how to use it. Tanya, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else except for we're getting the data on visibility directly from the engines. That's the only thing I was just the same way as any rank tracker went and rank tracked Google's results. We're doing the same thing just with Perplexity, Gemini, AI mode, GPT.
All right, we have time for one more question. Again, included by space. Here it is. Is Arc AI tracking available separate from SEO Clarity's other tools?
Yes. Clarity Arc AI is a separate product than SEO Clarity's, like you say, traditional SEO tools or platform within there is a separate suite. Yes, so it's available. Great question.
All right. That puts us at time, a little bit over. So everybody out there, just hang on for like 30 more seconds and then stay for that survey. Mark, Tanya, let's start in alphabetical order. Again, Mark, tell the people where to find you.
Oh, gosh, for me, you can just Google me. There's only 2 Mark Traphiggins on the internet that are famous at all. The other one's an intellectual property attorney. Don't ask me any questions about the law. I don't know anything about it. Everything else on Google is me. And of course, on the SEO Clarity blog, the SEO Clarity Research Data Center, I have tons of articles on there, many of them about this topic.
Yeah. Same LinkedIn, search me, you'll find me. I'm available and searchable on LinkedIn, Tanya German. I don't think there's anybody else out there like me in marketing, at least. So that's the best place to connect with me.
So many other Campbells. I'll never own my own stuff. All right. Thank you both for sharing all of your knowledge. Thank you for everybody who stuck around. Head over to sej.com/subscribe if you're not subscribed to our newsletter so you hear about our next great webinar. And with that, I'm going to send you over to the survey. Mark, Tanya, we'll see you hopefully again for another SEJ webinar. Thanks all. Have a great day.
Thank you.